All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We are live for another episode of the Real Producers Show. Now, we've hosted webinars, we've done podcasts, and we'll continue to do both. Good morning, Molly. But this is an additional platform. This platform is in addition to all that we've built that I'll get into here in a moment. But this is an additional platform we've built as a part of everything happening within the Real Producers community. And we're certainly glad that you're here with us today. This show is our opportunity to bring together some of the most influential voices in residential real estate from across the country to talk about what's really happening in the market across the country, to highlight agents who are leading it, of course, and to give you a front row seat into the conversations shaping the industry right now. So before we dive in, let me quickly level set here, especially for those who may be new to Real Producers. At our core, Real Producers is a national media and events platform built specifically for the top producing residential real estate agents in each market that we serve. And today we operate in over 125 markets across the US. And in every one of those markets, we focus on the top 5% of agents based on production. And these are agents who are consistently performing at the highest level. They're consistently navigating the most complex real estate transactions and then setting the pace for the industry ongoing. They've led in the past, they're leading today, and they'll continue to lead into the future. And our mission is very simple, and that is to connect, elevate, and inspire top real estate agents and the partners who serve them in the affiliate industries. And we do that through three different pillars. The first is what is at the center of everything, and that is Real Producers Magazine. These are magazines within each respective franchise community that we're involved with. So we've got over 125 markets that receive their own market-specific magazine. These are high-quality publications delivered directly to the top agents in that respective market. And what makes it different is simple. It's not pay to play. Agents cannot pay to be featured in our publication. They cannot buy their way in. They are selected based on performance and certainly their story, because behind every top producer, there's a journey and a perspective worth sharing. Now, that second pillar is our events and our community. We bring top agents and our partners together intentionally. We do that for agent to agent connections, top agent to top agent, I should say, agent to affiliate and affiliate to affiliate, because in this type of business built on high stakes relationships such as real estate, relationships really matter. And when trust exists, our deals move smoother, clients are better served, and our longtime businesses grow, just like our top agents, businesses, as well as our clients who work with us. The third pillar is ongoing engagement. We keep this community connected year-round, locally, regionally, and nationally, not just through our magazines and not just through our local events. By the way, I think there's at least a dozen RP events going on today across the country. I talked to Don Hill, our franchise area director down in Tampa, Florida. He's got his awards show tonight. But we are not just doing these things locally, we're doing these continuously all across the board. I want to talk about how this happens, right? Because one thing that's important to understand that I'll reiterate is agents never pay to be highlighted and featured in our magazines, at our events, or through our social media. They never pay. The platform is 100% supported by our partners, by our advertising partners in each one of our respective communities. These are top tier businesses who already serve high performing agents. And we don't cold call those people. They're actually referred in by the top agents themselves. So the top agents in our markets will tell us, hey, we really love this lender. We really love this title company, this home inspector. And those are the individuals that they refer us to that ultimately become the folks we celebrate as well in our publications and the folks who support this entire program financially. Because protecting the integrity of this community is everything to us, obviously. So you might be wondering, why this show? You know, you're doing all these other things, local magazine, local events, social media, all of those things. Why are we doing the Real Producers Show? Well, because when you're connected to the top 5% of agents across the country in over more than 100 markets, and you work with the affiliates they recommend, you start to see patterns and you hear what's working and you understand what's changing. And that gives us, alongside our top agents and our partners, the ability to do something meaningful. And that is to bring real-time, real-world insight to the rest of the top agents across the country and affiliates, not because of theory or headlines. We've seen quite a few and we continue to see a lot of headlines out there, but actual conversations with people in the business every single day. So who is this show for? This show is for top producing agents. It is for our industry partners that are aligned with those agents. You might be one of our partners out there. I see a few people in the comments. Let me check in here. I see Christina Smith, Molly, Natalie from Homestretch, one of our valued clients in multiple markets. So we've got some of our current clients. We might even have some affiliates who are familiar and follow Real Producers, but maybe they haven't met or been referred yet, and they just haven't started working with us yet. If that is you, welcome. We're glad you're here. But the show is also for our agents who are obviously operating at a high level, who want clarity on where the market is heading. A lot of our markets, respectively, host local masterminds, top agents on the panel, top agents there in the room. And this is a way for us to do that publicly and nationally. We're also continuing to expand with about 40 to 45 markets remaining nationwide here. So whether you're an agent, you're a business, or an agent who knows someone that we should be talking to about our open territories, we'd love to connect with you. We've got 5 here on Showcase that you can take a look at here. Coachella Valley in Palm Desert, California. We've got Green Bay, Wisconsin available currently. Philadelphia, PA. Savannah, Georgia, and then Hilton Head, South Carolina, just to showcase a few. Like I said, if you are on here, you're an agent, you know someone in those markets that we should be talking to, you can either connect with us or your local franchise area director that we hope you know well at this point. Now, with a foundation in place here, let's get into what today is all about. This is a conversation. We've got multiple things happening today. Normally I have my co-host Kelly Kilmer alongside with me, but there are some technical difficulties. However, you can find her in the chat. I can already see her bouncing around. And just to intro Kelly, she has not only been a historical top producing agent, but she's a broker with Remax in Tulsa. She's also a Real Producers multi-unit franchise owner, and she just so happens to be our Real Producers National Growth Manager. So Kelly, thanks for helping out in the chat here today. And so we'll start out by what's happening in the market. Now, today, one of our topics that we're going to kick off with initially is some of the changes that our top agents and affiliates are seeing in the renovation world, as far as what people are doing or any new changes that we're seeing to update their property with focus on the value that it may or may not provide in the sale of their home. And we love to hear from Jason Ferrier, AKA the Housing Nerd. And Jason is going to spend a moment breaking down what we're seeing across the country when it comes to listings and home renovation strategies, so we can dig into the discussion with a few other people that I will introduce momentarily. So let's go ahead and bring the Housing Nerd to the table here. Jason, how are you, man?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Good to see
Awesome.
you.
Yeah,
Good
good
to
to
see
see you,
you.
Bobby. Yeah,
All right,
thanks for
so
having me.
we're gonna let you give us a little quick update here to get the discussion rolling amongst the rest of the group. So why don't we let you take it away?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot, Bobby. I'm just going to present my file here. It doesn't look like it's coming in. So hang on one second. Share. Share. Okay, can you see me? Can you hear me? Can you see my screen?
I can hear you loud and clear. We cannot see your screen though.
All right. Hang on one second. Sorry. How's that?
There we go. Looks like it's
All right.
loading up. Looks like
Yeah, it's
something's
loading up.
loading up.
Yeah. It'll come on here in a minute. Yeah. So look, from a housing market perspective, we are now basically, we've hit our slowest pace in home sales nationally, and everything I'm going to talk about is national. We've hit our slowest pace in home sales since March of 2009, if you can believe it. March of 2009. And we all know kind of what happened in March of 2009, but that's not happening now. There's no price crash, but there's definitely a sales crash. And if you're in the industry, you know that. But really, here's the thing. There is still a massive amount of opportunity out there if you know where to look. And top agents typically know where to look. So I'm just, I'll bring this up. Can you see this, what I'm doing? Just want to make sure. You can't, can you?
Cannot see it. No.
It's not letting me. I don't know why this time it's not letting me.
Why don't we just talk through it? Let's do that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So slowest pace since March of 2009. If you compare March of 2026, we've just had a crash of home sales. And why is that? Well, you've got a massive amount of people refusing to list their properties for sale. In fact, active homes for sale right now, they're down 14% versus 2019. So we have 14% fewer homes on the market if you look at now compared to pre-pandemic levels. I just pulled the Redfin data for this morning that they updated like an hour ago, and active listings, according to Redfin nationally, are down 3% year over year. So we have fewer houses on the market versus last year and fewer homes on the market versus 2019. And it's a simple fact that buyers can't move because there's not a lot for sale. And you've got sellers that are like, you know what? I don't really want to sell my home right now, mainly because I'm locked into a mortgage rate, right? In fact, 79% of all homeowners who have a mortgage have a rate below 6%. So when rates are 6 1/4, 6 1/3, like they are now, most homeowners are like, you know what? I'm just not going to put my house on the market. There's no reason to move. And so they're just sitting on a house payment they can't replace right in the current, and in the market. So they can't move up. And so they're really not on the sidelines. They're just more anchored into a lower rate. And I looked at some stats, and this is crazy, but 54% of current homeowners, when surveyed from Bank Rate Mortgage, say that there's not a mortgage rate at all that would cause them to actually sell their home. So they're like, I don't care if rates go to 3%, I'm not selling. I think a lot of that has to do with renovation. I think a lot of it has to do with people who bought at lower prices, have put a lot of money into their homes over the last few years, and maybe also have a lower mortgage rate. And they're like, you know what? I don't have to sell. I'm not going to. And that 54% of homeowners that are refused to sell even if rates drop, that's up from 42% the previous year. So that number is growing. Some of these folks, depending on what generation they're in, they may never come back to the housing market. They may be like, you know what, I'm staying here for the entire cycle. I'm just not leaving. And so the question becomes like, where does the money go then? Like in the market, I think it's going to renovations, and probably the experts that are on the panel today will probably speak more to this, but it goes to renovations, it goes into the house. So right now you've got Harvard did a study and projects that we will hit $522 billion in home renovation spending this year in 2026. And that's an all-time high. So people staying in their homes, not selling. For agents, where's the opportunity? Well, if you're connected with the right contractors, and if you can refer the right contractors to your clients or to your prospective clients, that may not be a listing now, but it could be a listing in the future. And so, number one, as for takeaways anyway, from a housing nerd standpoint, the top agents in this room are still winning. You're still the top agents. You dominate your markets, but the pie is obviously smaller. The pie is going to be smaller. So new listings are down, active listings are down, transactions are down. I'm not sure that that's going to really pick up. I don't see in the data it's going to pick up this year significantly. The National Association of Realtors just dropped their forecast from 14% growth of home sales to 4% growth of home sales. So even there, the most, I would say, optimistic, bullish folks out there that are forecasting data are saying, you know what, I don't think we're going to see an increase in home sales. And so because of that, you got to be connected with the right people. And I think being connected with the contractors out there, referring the contractors for home renovations, knowing what renovations will increase value when they do list, I think that's important. And I don't think a lot of agents are thinking that way. Top agents may be, but most agents aren't. So I guess my point is, if you're waiting for the market to give you something or to change, or the administration to give you something, or for you to get a lower mortgage rate, to come through the system that'll cause a bunch of people to sell, to me, it's not in the cards right now. So we got to pivot. And I think it's all about home renovation. So the homeowner doing that 80 grand of renovation today could be your seller in 5 years. That's how I'm thinking of this.
Yeah.
And that's what I got.
All right. Yeah. I mean, digging a little bit deeper into this, we see this and we see the market doing what it's done, what it's been doing. And you referenced 2009, right? Some weird stuff happened in 2020 we won't talk about. And in certain ebbs and flows in the market over time, we see a surge, obviously, in people who want to become real estate agents. And all along the way, we talk to our top agents all the time, and they say, when we see things like this transpiring in the market, we actually double down, we get stronger, right? So when you mentioned in your report that the top agents are still doing the majority of the work, a lot of these folks are telling us, hey, I mean, it's coming from a long list of relational things I've done across my client journey, right? So while there are a lot more or a lot less homes being listed and sold and purchased, our top agents are obviously still prevailing within this, and they are prepared to withstand. And in fact, they get creative. And that's why we get excited to have these types of conversations. So Jason, thank you for that. We always love your insight when it comes to what's going on across the country, man. We're going to keep you involved here. We're going to put you backstage here for a minute, but we will bring you back. Now, I want to bring this to real life. We're going to start talking about some of the folks that we get the chance to interact with and give you a little bit of an example of that. I want to introduce Chris Larson, principal broker of Oswego Real Estate Group, and he's also a top broker for over 2 decades now. He's actually listing his home. I think you put your home on the market today. Didn't you?
Goes on today. It goes on today. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you loud and clear, man.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Chris started flipping properties. I think it was back in 2001, right?
Yeah.
And after being around a little bit, saw a gap in professionalism in real estate, and decided to raise the bar himself, and he did just that. Since then, he's held licenses in 3 states, sold over in the last couple of years, over 300 properties, and in the last couple of years, closed more than $150 million in transactions. Chris, you bring a couple different things to the table here. One, top agent. Two, been around for a while, seen a lot. Three, principal broker that has also led a lot of people to success. And you've also got a little bit of an idea and experience when it comes to listing a home and putting renovations into a home that will cause obviously a higher listing and a sale rate, right? So let's get into that a little bit, man. Your story, being in real estate for over 20 years, you've gone from leading big teams, getting leaner. What would you say in your career has been the most important contribution to your success?
Well, I mean, I think that, like you were saying, I bring a little bit of a unique perspective to my clients and to listing high-end properties or being able to provide perspective. We talked yesterday, Bobby, about the fact that, selling real estate's been in my blood, in my passion now for 21 years. And that's a great part of the business. And I always want to do a fantastic job for my clients and get them top dollar and sell their houses with, as little friction as possible and all that stuff. But the thing that I can bring that I tend to win on is as you know, Tiffany and I do a ton of renovation work on our personal homes. We've leveraged the capital gains exemption that the IRS provides homeowners. There's a rule out there that you can exclude $250,000 per individual or $500,000 per couple on a joint file if you make the capital gains up and over that amount. And if it's in your primary residence and you live there for 2 out of a 5-year period, we've leveraged that rule and we've turned it into a really substantial wealth generation tool for our family. And the fact that we now find projects or go ground up on homes, and we do it with the mindset of like, how can we add value to this? How can we take this, $1.2 million fixture, which sounds crazy, $1.2 million fixtures, put enough money into it that we make it beautiful, live here for our 2 or 3 year period, and then turn around and sell it, which is what we're doing on this property here. And then how do we, make that profit tax free? And then how do we do a rinse and repeat on the next property? And so just having done now probably 10, I think this might be our 10th or 11th property that we've done together in the last 20 years. So we do it pretty consistently. I bring in that perspective when I sit down with a homeowner or a seller, whether they're buying something or they're getting ready to list something. I can bring in almost like this frustrated contractor perspective. I know what stuff costs. I know what it costs to remodel a kitchen. I know what it costs to redo a primary bathroom. I know what it costs to make cosmetic changes, covered spaces, outdoor kitchens, because I've done all of it. So being able to kind of leverage that with my buyers, when they walk into something, they go, man, we really want the school district in Lake Oswego, but man, this is $1 million house that we got to put, they think they walk in, they got to put $500,000 into it to make it up to par as to what they want to actually live in. But I can walk in with them and say, no, you don't have to spend $500,000. Here's what we're going to do. You can spend here, you can use these people. Here's a great contractor. Here's a way to do it for less money, but get that same look. And you're looking at maybe a couple $100,000 or $250,000 to get that fully remodeled feel. So I bring a little bit of that perspective to the fold when I'm working with buyers and working with sellers, is that I've done a lot of the work myself. I've personally done a lot of the work myself, but I've also used, contractors and subcontractors when necessary to, I'm not going to lay hardwood flooring. I'm not going to set countertops. I'm done doing tile work. So I use those subs where it's necessary, So that's the kind of the unique perspective that I bring that a lot of agents necessarily don't have perspective on, because it can make or break a deal when you walk in and somebody throws their hands up in the air and says, this house is going to cost $300,000 to remodel. We don't have that, and maybe it's not going to cost $300,000 to remodel. Maybe it's going to cost half of that. And trying to coach and advise beyond just negotiating the contract and putting the paperwork together, is a really substantial value add for my clients.
Yeah, totally. And, just as you list your home today, as that thing goes on the market, you mentioned to me, you guys have done a lot of improvements to that home.
Yeah.
And clearly, I mean, it would be foolish for me to even ask. So it's clear that you did all of that with the listing value in mind, right?
Yeah,
so
we
share some
backward from that 100%.
Yeah. So you looked at it and said, now, how does the market shift? When markets shift, how does that change? Now, you've been there for a couple of years, so you're kind of like operating within the current market on that.
Yeah, we actually had it. So we'll be 4 years in May on this property, which is kind of long for us. Usually at 2 years, we throw them out and test. And we threw it out 2 years ago, right about now in May. The market was definitely in transition. The house had a few spaces left to kind of touch. It had some original concrete or brick patios that dated it. The house was built in 84. And then it had like this pool shed or this like cabana that I'm in right now that was basically a storage shed, 190 square feet that the previous owner built. We put a pool in, so it kind of looks like a pool house. And we kept hearing, God, we need that fifth space for my office. We need that fifth space to put my parents when they stay. Because we've got 3 kids and your house is only 4 bedrooms. And so I just simply stepped back. We pulled it off the market. We had a weird kind of lowball offer with a contingency. And we just said, hey, we'll stay here for that number. We can live here for 10 years based on what you're offering, the under asking. Long story short, I said, let's put $4,000 or $5,000 in the cabana. Let's put a mini split out there. So, you get the heat in the winter and the cold in the summer. Let's tear down the existing covered structure that wasn't attached to the house. Let's attach it to the house. Anyways, long story short, I put another $50,000 into the property. I did most of the work myself. And now when we go live, I'm going to go live at the same price we did 2 years ago. I bet we go under contract within the first 2 weeks because we addressed the 2 biggest complaints. Was the covered space isn't attached to the house and it's not big enough to sit more than 2 or 3 people. And there's no fifth space for me to work out of or to have my wife's art studio or, so the house is 100% now. There's literally nothing left to do to it. So hopefully with these 2 final adjustments and remarketing, the market to me feels better this season, a little bit more confident this season than 2 summers ago. All my listings I've put out in the last 4 months have all gone pending fairly quickly. Even though inventory is down, I do feel like the buyers that are out here right now are the serious buyers. So hopefully these adjustments and timing the market a little differently will get us an offer. And we're at the same price as we were 2 years ago, so hopeful that we'll get people through the door and we'll get an offer. We'll see.
There you go. Fantastic. All right. Yeah. Well, Chris, thanks for jumping in on this. I want to leave you in this discussion here. Obviously, why wouldn't we, right? We're going to bring Jason Ferrier back and let's get a little tactical. We're also going to bring a couple of our clients within Real Producers Markets here. So we're going to expand the lens a little bit. We're going to talk how the top producers as well as our top clients are navigating with a couple different slices of experience here. We're going to bring Daniel Tremello out here as well. Daniel he's a client in our San Diego market, works with our franchise area director, Jesse Wright, out there in San Diego. But Daniel is an award-winning investor. He's a flipper. You were the San Diego investor and flipper of the year. Daniel, I don't recall what year that was. Maybe it's every year.
Depends. Yeah. So 2023, we were investor of the year, and last year we another outfit voted us flipper of the year.
Fantastic. You've deployed nearly $1 billion in real estate investments and are the founder of Resolve. When we asked Jesse Wright what she thought about you, she said Daniel's been a longtime client and friend and great supporter and ideal client of San Diego Real Producers. So few nice words from Jesse there. Let's talk to Steve Swanson as well. Let's bring Steve in as well. Steve is a part of a national franchise called Renovation Sells, and Renovation Sells delivers turnkey renovation solutions for agents and their clients, oftentimes getting much higher listing prices due to some needed renovations out there. So we are glad to have each and every one of you gentlemen. I asked who did I ask? Oh, Mary Burrell. You work with Mary Burrell out in northern Colorado. So we're getting Colorado in the mix here as well, Steve. And I asked Mary to say a few words about you. So I've got a nice little thing here. No, I'm not going to embarrass you with a video. I just got to pull this thing up here real quick. All right, just one moment. Never want to miss a moment to say a nice word about someone here, but for some reason, here we go. All right. Mary says, Steve is the ultimate professional while being very approachable. He does the work to stay on top of what's moving homes in the current market and doesn't oversell. It's why the top producers in Northern Colorado trust him and work with him to bring value to their clients. He brings that same intentionality to his partnership with NoCo RP, and we love working with them. How about that? Jesse and Mary just loving on you guys. Cool. All right. Well, welcome to the conversation here. We're going to get into it. As I mentioned in the beginning of the show, you got Chris Larson, principal broker, long-term successful real estate agent, leader, licensed in multiple states here. We got Jason Ferrier, the housing nerd. I swear no one looks at the real estate data as long as Jason does without his eyes crossing. We've got Dan Tremello, big time investor, not just in San Diego, but all across the country in real estate, and Steve Swanson, all our partners in RP across the country and valued supporters in discussions like this. All right. So guys, you've heard us talking to Chris about recent experiences, career experiences. I want to start with Daniel here. And Daniel, just to talk a little bit about, you've deployed investment dollars everywhere, but let's talk about some of the shifts that you're seeing in the investment market here and how you've been getting creative over the last couple of years.
Good question. There's always shifts. I mean, I think in talking to Kelly, we were discussing, real estate is so specific and it's so hyper localized. And so what works in Chris's market may not work in mine, same with Jason's, same with yours. Like the shifts around everything, no matter what. And it depends also, like I think the context of the show has been rehabbing for higher ROI. ROI for appraisal versus ROI for like an emotional response from a buyer are two different avenues. And so a lot of the shifts, our layout is substantially bigger than I think than probably most people focus on. Layout really important. And particularly in San Diego, Southern California, the average house is like 60 years old. They've been through 5 to 7 appraisals on like, let's say an average basis. So like there's data. And most of these though, if they're 2-1 or 2-2s, but they have enough square footage, like converting it to a 3-bedroom, 2-bath is substantially higher shift. Because like who hit on it? I think Chris, you hit on it. The work from home thing after COVID was so big, and so having extra room and a little bit extra square footage, and so I think that's like probably one of the bigger shifts that maybe is not as considered or not as talked about as much as like finishes and the white cabinets and like that stuff matters, but not as much as it was in maybe like 21, 22, 23.
Yeah, so you're speaking more toward like people are leaning more into the function and not just the look of everything. I could see that too. Chris mentioned something as well, talking about mom or dad moving in. One of the other trends that we're seeing across the country is 10,000 people are turning 65 every single day, right? So it's a matter of, where we're seeing traditionally it used to be that mom and dad would move in when they got too old. And then it shifted to moving into nursing homes and things like that. We're starting to see that trend come back where they're building mother-in-law suites and stuff like that. Chris, I heard you mention that as well. Steve, when it comes to the work that you guys do and what you see, as I understand it, we're talking about, hey, look, I'm going to list my home for $700K. And if I update the kitchen, maybe if I put $30K into the kitchen, maybe I could list my home for $60,000, $80,000 more. Right. So what are some of the changes that you've been seeing, if any, from your line of work?
Yeah. And you just kind of touched on this a little bit, but senior transitions, it's a huge deal for us right now. So, you look at some of these homes where family has lived in for 30, 40 years, and in a lot of cases haven't done anything to it. Still got the original kitchen, and you've got carpet that's 20 plus years old, a lot of cosmetic needs. If those houses just hit the market as is, I think, we all know what's going to happen, and it's not going to sell for what it could. And that's where we really come in. We advise on, hey, here are the things that we believe that you should do. And it's always focused on, what is the kind of ROI that you can get. We partner with, top agents to say, hey, if we did XYZ scope of work, then, what would that look like in terms of comps, right? Comp A, you do nothing. Comp B, it looks great. What's the delta there, and what kind of budget do we have to play with? So, but that's what I'd say is the biggest thing is just, the seniors that are moving, and we know there's not a lot of supply out there. As Jason was describing earlier, just the sales are super soft, but when things are coming on, us being able to, have a positive impact with renovations is making a big difference.
Yeah, great points. Hey, I'm in the Midwest. I'm in Ohio, and like ADUs and things like that, additional dwelling units have been like, no way, Jose. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, you want to build an ADU on your property to get your in-laws or get mom and dad there because they're elderly and they need help with their care. Go for it. It's getting accepted in some of these suburbs in the Midwest that have been totally against that are now opening it up. I think out west, Daniel, Chris, you guys, that's been a thing for a long time. Correct me if I'm wrong here. But as far as trends go, I think we kind of see whatever happens out west, you start to see happening across the country historically. So any new things that we're seeing out your way, you're probably gonna start seeing it all across the country. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. Chris, so you mentioned something, and I definitely am interested in this. We didn't get to this when we talked offline, but really you mentioned today that you had listed this home and it wasn't appropriate for the needs of the people who were looking at the home, right? So you pulled it off, did a few things to get that thing right-sized, and now you've got it back on the market. I'm curious from the group, are you guys seeing that? Are you seeing agents kind of negotiate or coaching people up on, we're not going to list yet. We actually need to add this, and this before we start. Not only can you list it for hire, but you're going to nail a bigger demographic of people. Are you guys seeing much of that out your way?
I can speak on that. There's such a tiny amount, and I say tiny, less than 1% of agents who can do that and be effective. Like agents like Chris just hearing what he's talking about they're unicorns. There's very, very few that can come into a property that I know I trust that can say, I'm gonna pick out tile, I'm gonna help with finishes. I know the buyer profile, because that's ultimately everything in remodeling for. If the house in that area painted all black, like burn down the garage and it sells for the highest price, and that's a strategy. As an investor, that's what we do. We have no emotional attachment to these properties, right? I like a homeowner. But as specific as that goes, that's incredibly rare. But we definitely lean on it, as I do as an investor for sure.
Yeah,
sure.
The average agent, unfortunately, just they want to get the sign in the ground and get it on the market, clean it up, take the photos, and get it going. They don't. There's some, and especially if it's a competitive situation, they want to get that homeowner kind of under contract and get going on things, even if. And obviously it depends on what the seller's goals and objectives are and how fast they want to get it listed. But it does take a little bit of a different mindset to say, wait, let's pump the brakes just a little bit. If you made this modification, or if you brought in my person to do that, it's going to cost, prime example, I had a house, brand new construction, a year and a half ago. My clients moved in, they were there 4 months. They got transferred to Florida, and it was a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath house under $1 million in Lake Oswego, which is like a total anomaly because most new construction starts at about 1.5. I'm like, oh, this is going to fly off the shelf. We'll get it listed. It's new. I mean, what do I got to do? I'll get it staged. We'll get the photography done. We'll get it out. It'll sell. We ran 100 people through there in 6 months, and we could not get an offer. And we kept hearing bedrooms, missing a bedroom, missing a bedroom, missing a bedroom. So I had a buddy who's a contractor come in. I'm like, let's frame out a bedroom wall. Let's do a closet, because it kind of had an open, like, office den, lofty area up on the second level. And it was going to be like $10,000 to frame in the wall and the door and put the closet in. And we would have sold that house so much. It took a year to sell because of the lack of that 4th bedroom. And it was on a flag lot and kind of sat behind a house. That was a bit of a challenge too. But anyways, long story short, I could not convince my seller to spend the $10,000 to correct the biggest thing we kept hearing. And long story short, we started at 1.1 and it sold for 930. So they went backwards with fees and everything, probably $200,000 from what they paid for it. So if they would have just invested, but I couldn't convince them. They didn't want to spend the $10,000, but it would have corrected the flaw in the property. So that happens too.
To piggyback on what you're saying, and I think a lot of it is, we're talking ROI, but there's so much unforeseen opportunity cost in the real estate world. A lot of times, like, we have projects where we just invest to sell it.
Yeah.
If we got stuck in something, which we've had a couple, let's just invest to sell it, because we just got to get out of the deal and not hold on to it for another 6, 8, 9 months, a year, 2 years. And that the loss is substantially, it's like the loss aversion is substantially a bigger driver, I know, for the right people, than put the 10,000 in just to get out of it versus get top dollar.
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges for agents out there is they feel like they have to be experts in construction to talk about this stuff with their clients and to get them to do something. And the reality is they don't. If they can partner with companies like Renovation Sells, Homestretch, whatever it is, we come in and we can talk that language. We can do the sales process for them. But again, it's a partnership. And I think once you have that, it's a huge value add. For the realtor and for their client, to the points that you're making. So, we love to create the relationships. Call us. We love to help you out, help your clients out. I think it can make a big difference.
Yeah. Across the board, we see it. If there's a need, a trending need or a scaled need in real estate, there's a company with an expert for it. That's what we love about real estate relationships, and obviously our clients that support us for the many reasons and the ways that they do. I want to end with this one, really focus within something you said, Chris. And I'm thinking about just move-in readiness. I think that as we're seeing things evolve, and as we're talking to top agents across the country, we're hearing definitely what Jason Ferrier said, right? People are holding tight on a nice interest rate, and then they're making improvements to their home. More of those improvements happening are more intentional for when they decide to resell. We're also seeing folks buy or sell, help buyers with properties that are much smaller than they would otherwise buy, and then they're blowing it out and adding on to it to make that house fit their needs functionally. But I want to talk about readiness, right? Like, is readiness more important? Meaning, like, I want to just move in and I don't want to have to do anything, right? So that's part one. Has that changed or evolved a little bit? Are people making concessions there? The second part would probably be more of a Steve Daniel question, where, how important is it, right? Steve specifically, the look. We talked about the look, right? When you go and you focus on like a kitchen remodel and you update that listing, when it comes to readiness of buyers, like, just how important is that? Or do people want to come in still to this day and do that work?
Well, from what we see, I can tell you there's no question that the readiness is absolutely important. I mean, if you walk into a house and it's dated and you've got, 5 different types of flooring on the main level and different colors of paint, I mean, that is an immediate turnoff. And, the studies show that millennials, especially, they don't want to do anything. They want move-in ready. They want to walk in, turnkey, and it's ready to go. They don't want to make the investment. They don't have the time. And so, of course, that's where we come in, and that's what we do all day long. But yeah, I would definitely argue that it's extremely important.
Yeah, heard that. Yeah, we didn't even talk about millennials, right? Or first-time home buyers. That's maybe a conversation for another show. All right. Well, guys, hey, I appreciated this conversation here. If there's anything else to add or close out with, I think, Daniel, you might have had one more thing to add.
Yeah, just discussing what you're
opportunity.
saying. So 100% readiness functionally is really critical. Like functionally, I mean, mechanically, electrically, it has to work, right? It's got to pass. If you can't, we do a home inspection every flip that we sell before we sell it to see if there's any problems before we address those problems, disclose all that stuff. Readiness is critical. The look's very important. The interesting thing about when you're remodeling a property, and if you live in a house, it's different because there's emotional attachment. You're living in it. You have photos up and all that stuff, right? But a lot of times, like builder grade, you need to use some like kind of custom type stuff depending on price points. But ultimately, like you still got to kind of paint the walls white and let people make their own decisions on certain things, right? Ultimately, you're not, it's hard if you, or, I have a kind of a fruity wallpaper behind me. I live in San Diego. I like the ocean and I like green trees, whatever. If I put this in a lot of remodels, people are like, they might be off-putting versus just making it a white background or something very simple. And things like that, they matter, and lighting matters too. So like you can make things a little bit different in staging and all these things, but like the more neutral and the more less offensive, you want to keep it simple, and it can be boring, and that's very boring, but it's effective and it sells properties, and ultimately that's what you're going to do, right?
Yeah, for sure. And so it sounds like you're suggesting like this emotional attachment, like I live here, but I'm only really interested in doing things that's going to help me sell this home or maybe sell it for a greater amount. I should probably detach my emotion from the decisions I'm making.
I think like when you think about rehabbing, I think about all the time of like, how do you make it an absolute money? Like the first person who goes and says, I have to buy this house I was talking to Kelly earlier yesterday. She's like, apparently garage doors are like this trend. I'm like, I think it's a random way of saying curb appeal, like make it look nice from the outside, right? Like whatever you have to do to make it standard in the neighborhood or a little bit above standard to make it look like a curated property that people want to live in. And using designers is helpful in certain price point scenarios because they can bring some of that,
Sure. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I feel like we could talk about this all day, but I appreciate you guys jumping in and providing some insight. Chris, love to get to know you and tell your story a little bit for everybody and your experience in the renovation side of things, as many homes as you've lived in and flipped. Thanks for the tip for those who needed it on taking a tax advantage of that end. Steve, Renovation Sells, so glad that you're here. Thank you. And Daniel, thank you guys for being partners of Real Producers Magazine. And Jason Ferrier, thanks for dropping by with us and giving us a national industry update. All right, so we're going to spotlight a top agent here as well. Another one outside of Chris. Max Rumbach has represented over $1.5 billion in residential real estate and is currently the #1 broker in Washington State and has been since I believe 2023, known specifically for discipline, strategy, client advocacy. I asked Shay Robinson, who is our franchise area director out in Seattle RP, what he had to say about Max. He said, there are a lot of successful agents in our market. Max is known as the best simply due to his work ethic, expertise, and ability to negotiate on behalf of his clients. I've got nothing but respect for him and his legacy he is building for he and his family. So Max, we're glad you're here, man. How are you? We got you muted here, bud. There you go.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the kind words and the good intro. Appreciate that.
Yeah, man. I meant to tell you this when we talked. That logo is on point. I'm gonna have to
Thank
get one of
you.
those hats shipped out this way. So, guys, the essence of Real Producers and what we do is you receive one in the publication or in the mail if you're a top agent or one of our affiliates, or you just see us online. You see one of the things that we really do, anchored in our entire spirit of the Real Producers brand, is to share the real story behind the successful agent, right? These are spouses, these are parents, these are people who are involved in other things outside of real estate, but they all possess the ability to work their rear ends off. There's work ethic there's consistency, there's perspective, there's vision, and they got to be a little bit coachable too, right? So, Max, tell us, how did you get here, right? I mean, you weren't born in the US, right? So let's start there. How did you get in the US? And let's start from there and we'll work through your story here.
Oh, I've got that story, the immigrant, that the success story. The immigrants worked the hardest. I'm just kidding. I mean, my family immigrated here from the Ukraine back in '93. All the turmoil back in the USSR. It was still USSR falling apart. But I was young. I was 11 years old, and just turned 44 this month. And I got into real estate when I was 21. I started doing mortgages with my dad when I was 19. So I got a little bit of a preview into the real estate business. My dad was a mortgage broker. I came and did some processing for him. So I kind of understood the business for a couple of years, gave me an opportunity to get some insight. But nobody really besides me, nobody was in the family who did any real estate sales whatsoever. I was the first, and then my mom followed, my sister followed. I've got another sister that does mortgages now. So my dad is a contractor now. He quit the mortgage business when they started kind of, trimming the fat, so to speak, when financial DFI started up and they limited how much people were going to make. So he went from making a shit ton of money to being kind of capped. So he makes a really good living with the contractors. It's great to meet all these contractors, all these people who flip. I flipped a lot of homes. I've actually flipped a lot of stuff with my dad as well. And all of that has kind of shaped my business into what it is today. I've grown into, now I have had 4 salespeople. Now we're back down to 2, which is kind of the size that I prefer. And I have 4 staff members that help me with all the listings and management of my business and things like that. So it's very smooth and very streamlined. We have a really good system, really, strong presence in the Kirkland market, which is, home of Google in Washington State. We have a lot of techies, and my name's gotten around. I mean, we do consistently. My best year, I did $268 million in one city, in Kirkland. Closest person to me did 40 that year. That was in 2022. We consistently do about 200 to 300 million per year now in transactions, even in a really tough market. Like right now, we're sitting right about 100 already for the year. So a lot of high-end real estate, but the business has been shaped with, like I said, a lot of flips. I've developed a lot of really, really good relationships with vendors and contractors. And it's a very streamlined process from, that people really like, our sellers really like, that when they come to us, I actually tell people, I said, just give me your keys and leave. I'll send you the bills. I'll get the house sold and you'll be done. Right. So I prefer to be 100% hands-on from a perspective of like, I have people that help me, but I still oversee the entire operation. I still communicate with my clients. I just went to Japan. I went to Thailand. I went to Mexico twice already this year. So it's April. So I get a lot of travel, but I don't disconnect. My clients really appreciate that. My phone's always next to me. I'm always responsive. I've got a team of people that can bring a house, from the minute that you sign a contract, and you can leave, and I'll get it completely presentable. They pay for everything, but we run the entire process. I have somebody on my team that basically runs everything. So my buyers are all taken care of with my buyers agents who are showing, and I'm just kind of in the middle, or say on top of it all, just making sure that clients are all satisfied, the negotiations are happening properly. I'm communicating with brokers. I'm very, very connected in the broker community. I communicate with agents all the time. I follow the market. Things are something goes on the market, I'm constantly texting with brokers. Things aren't selling, I'm constantly texting with brokers. So that collaboration keeps me in good graces, which you have to be in an environment with, especially when you're on top. You really want to be in really good with your community of real estate brokers, because we all help each other. And I'm always willing to give brokers my time and willing to help answer questions as brokers are calling. So that collaboration, all of that just kind of snowballs into a really successful business. We've been number one in Kirkland, which is kind of my home base, where I decided to specialize back in 2013. This starts, I think, 7th or 8th year. We should be we're on track to be number one by a long stretch. And yeah, you're right, 2023, 24, 25, and we're on track hopefully to close out 26 as number one in Washington State as well, based on production volume.
Fantastic. And that does not happen by accident, right? You mentioned relationships with affiliates, relationships with agents. Certainly, I don't want to miss the fact to highlight, right? Your family integrated here when you were 3, right? You said 3?
I was 11.
You were 11, sorry.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I got 3. But, you come here, your families, when they immigrate to the U.S., and, when they say, when you made that comment, right, like the work ethic, really, I think it's because it's so tied to purpose, right? So you got a chance to watch your parents and your dad work, right? So you mentioned, when we first talked in the pre-show, just about how much you learned from your dad. Like, he kind of made you destined for sales based on what you saw. So why was that so appealing to you, and how did it translate into the early days of your real estate career? Because, one of the big misnomers of the public is like, oh, well, he probably just raised his hand and said, I want to be a real estate agent at the right time, and he rode off into the sunset. We all know that's not how it works, right?
Not true. Yeah.
So let's talk about the early days of real estate for you. What sales meant to you, and how you began to build that.
Sales has always been my blood. My dad's kind of always kind of groomed me for, it was either going to be, he always said, either you should go into real estate sales or you should do mergers and acquisitions. And I was not a very good banker. My math was okay, but I did not like sitting behind a computer or doing math. And I learned that I did not appreciate that when I worked with him doing mortgages. But I went, from the time I was 16, I knocked doors for the Seattle Times, basically, one of our bigger newspapers back then, basically selling newspaper subscriptions. It was the first job I could have. At 16, I was working, 4 or 5 hours a day, 4 days a week. And talk about grit. That teaches you some freaking grit. Getting the door slammed in your face. I had guns pointed at me. It used to be better than it is now. Probably even scarier to do things like that now. Probably people don't open the door. But I was very successful. I paid for school doing that. I had a nice car when I was in high school. But I was making like 20, think about this is back in 90, 98, 97. I was making $20,000 to $30,000 a year working part-time. I had no expenses. I was living with my parents. So I was doing well. But that really taught me a work ethic, because my dad always said to me that that salespeople in the world are the ones that make the most money. Whatever you are doing, whatever you can do to sell, where you can be on a commission basis, you can control your own income. The more you work, the harder you work. And I learned that because working at the Times, I was basically limited to working with the team 4 hours a day, but I wanted to make more money. I would go out extra. I did extra credit. I went out and sold more. I went out by myself when the team wasn't. So, and I learned, okay, the more I work, the harder I work, I made more money. And real estate's been like that for me. I'm always on, but it's that grind where you don't shut off. You're always thinking, where's the next deal going to come from? And 2, how are you going to take care of the deals that you have, the clients that you have? Right now it's a different market that we're in, but it's not the hardest market that we've experienced. And it's different. It's always been a different, every environment we've experienced. And I've been able to adapt to it really well. Like back in 2009, 2010, we were flipping houses, and I decided, hey, as a real estate career. So I I was basically acquiring properties for investors, flipping it for them, kind of like what I'm doing right now for clients, where we would do cosmetic updates, basic stuff, refresh the house to list it. But I was doing full on remodels for clients, and I was only charging a commission. So in the short sale times when no one was doing anything, we were still doing. I did my in 2009. I did $90,000 or $90 million in sales back in 09 when nobody would. I mean, nobody was buying houses. Nobody was selling houses. I started negotiating short sales for other agents. So again, just pivoting with the market, seeing what things were doing, and seeing where the market was heading. And like 2012, we could tell that the short sales were starting to dwindle. I was doing bankruptcy negotiations. I was hired by a lot of attorneys at that point. My name was out there, and then I noticed that things were going to start changing, and my retail business had completely atrophied. So I had to remember how to go out and get the retail business. I started holding open houses again, started advertising again, and we jumped ahead of everyone else. All my buddies who were, bank owned short sales investments and things like that, who transitioned to that from retail, they never bounced back to the retail side the way that I did. And we came out guns blazing. I started hiring people. We came out guns blazing because I picked an area. That's about the time when I picked one city to dump all of my money, set all open houses for other people. I cold called every person in Kirkland, and I said, if you want to sell your house, call me. Here's what we do. Give me an opportunity. Oh, we have a relationship with this broker. I understand. Get me in the room. Let me just at least have a chance.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned always being on, right? Or always being willing to be on, right? With your phone next to you. Your clients love that. We know you like to travel and play a little bit too. You traveled a couple times recently. You said Japan, you've been to Thailand, and obviously you didn't go alone. So tell us about your family.
I've got 16-year-old twins, twin girls. My wife and I have been together. We're about to celebrate our 20th wedding anniversary here in 2 months. We've been together since we were 16. So it's kind of crazy. My girls are driving now, and one of them is like getting into running start, which my wife and I did together. And it's crazy. Like my kids are the same age that my wife and I were when we first met. But yeah, they go to public school, Lake Washington High School. And they did private school like in the early years, elementary and middle school, which kind of established a good foundation for them. I made a lot of connections there. I mean, I've got one of my best friends and clients is a former Seahawk that I met at the school, actually at a fundraiser at the school. Philanthropy is really big for us. My wife worked with us on the team. She's quit now. She's basically backed off the business, but she was my marketing director for a long time and in charge of like philanthropy. And we did Eastside Elevated series. We do a shit ton of video, pardon my French. We do a lot of video, and we did a series called Eastside Elevated where we highlighted a lot of like icons or real estate or professionals in any field. We promoted nonprofits, the school system, the schools. We support financially. We support sports and athletics of the whole Lake Washington School District. We're philanthropy has always been big for us, and my wife. This is kind of what her little baby, which she kind of nurtured, and I'm still making sure that we stay on top of it all. But the family business is back to me, just me now. My wife is enjoying her time, planting roses and things like that now and taking care of the kids. Uh-oh, you're muted.
Which is no small task, right?
No small task, for sure.
Yeah, it's nice just to wrap things up with you, Max. You see the emergence of a success coming, right? And you busted your rear end. Your wife was with you through it all, so saw every piece of that, experienced every piece of that, worked with you, had a couple twins, right? Now, and she's able to step back from the business and help support the philanthropy efforts and take care of the kids for sure. So it's cool to see things come back around that way. And it's great to see what you've built. So, we love sharing. Obviously, we love sharing in success and celebrating that. But, certainly how people are giving back after they reach that level of success, right? Because there's never a day when there can't be more, right? But there's always an opportunity where we can start turning things around and giving it back to people as well. So love that you guys make that a part of your business. Loved having the chance to get to know you a little bit and celebrating you, Max, and hearing your story. So thank you so much for jumping on with us and spending a few moments. This is, again, the essence of Real Producers, and that is to share who these people are behind all this real estate success. And just know that there hasn't been one of them that just decided to become an agent and all of a sudden they're the number one agent in the state of Washington, right? So Max, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
My pleasure.
All right. Okay, so we're going to close things out here. Today was a great reminder of what happens when you bring top people together, real insight, real conversations, and a shared commitment here to something specifically of what's going on in today's market and what the top producers are paying attention to and what they're experiencing. So thank you to Chris and Daniel and Steve and Jason, and then Max to close us out here to talk about this topic, but also share a little bit about themselves, what makes them who they are, and how they reach this level of success. So thank you all, our guests as well, our viewers, for watching and participating in the chat. We will see you a month from now, third Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern, to do this all over again. You can visit us at realproducersmag.com to find more information. If you'd like to get in contact, you can do so that way. Everyone have a wonderful Thursday. We'll see you next month.